Answer to no, man, I still go, 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 go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. You got a mind, but even that could change. You could flip the gray matter like some batter in your brain. That's why I say, fake it till you make it A. And if you play that game, then you just might make a change. Rearrange all the bad to okay. Take the worst thoughts saying, turn them to a game. Take the best thoughts saying, put them on display. On repeat in your brain till you're feeling no more pain. Never slow yourself down, you can do some more. Push past all the pain and you'll find a door. Open it up and finally explore everything that you thought you could never do before. And even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Even
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Sports Report After Dark in 2023. I am your host, Seven. Dan may pop in tonight, but he's actually getting some personal stuff taken care of, and this was a last-minute planned episode. So probably no Dan tonight, but I have a host of individuals sitting back in the backstage area. We will be talking with them shortly. As we start off tonight, first, I do want to give a special thank you to my sponsor, Gunslinger Soap. Gunslinger Soap is handmade soaps and beard products made without all the junk to pamper your skin. You can go to their website, gunslingersoap.com, and sign up right now to get 15% off of your first order and always free shipping over $30. That's gunslingersoap.com. Definitely check them out. Also, as we get started tonight, I do want to say this is not a show for kids. Parents, the reason we do this late is because we get real. Explicit content, parental advisory is advised. We swear, we drink, we make inappropriate references, and we have a lot of fun. So if the kids are around, put them to bed and then come back. We will be here. We would still love to hear your thoughts on what we're going to be talking about tonight. Of course, the big news, the Demar Hamlin story and some fringe things around that. We're going to dive right in. Bringing in first the presidentress herself of the Sports Report, now back in Texas and still looking like a human fucking snow cone.
Always. And just to reiterate, I drop a lot of F-bombs. I'm the fuck queen. Like
our medical expert for the evening has taught me some swear words, so I think we're going to be in good company tonight. Speaking of which, a new guest on Sports Report and Sports Report After Dark, a longtime friend of mine. He was actually the best man at my wedding that happened last month. My good buddy, not a Dr. Norm, is joining us this evening.
Not a Dr. Norm, I love it.
To offer some perspective on the medical side as we talk about this, because we want to, educate as well as discuss. Of course, we are all happy to hear some of the updates today, and I'll dive into those in a minute, about the improvements on Demar Hamlin's health. But Norm will be with us to kind of help make sense of some of the information. Josie and I are going to get to ask some questions that you guys would have. And so if you do have some medical questions regarding the situation in the chat, you can put them in. We can't guarantee that we have answers. Norm does not have access to Demar's medical file. This is all just speculation based on public information. So let's keep it real here. So for those of you that have been living under a rock, this last week on Monday night, while Josie, Will, and the gang were live on Sports Report talking the week in sports, there was a situation developing in Cincinnati. Safety for the Buffalo Bills, Demar Hamlin, collapsed suddenly on the field after a play where he stopped a run involving T. Higgins. The hit was normal. He got up and very shortly after fell to the ground. It was announced later that he had cardiac arrest and had to be revived on the field. It took the NFL about an hour to actually cancel the game, which we'll kind of talk about here a little later as well. And it has been, he had been in a coma. It was announced today that he was brought out of the coma. He has been awake, opening his eyes, has been declared as neurologically intact, with the concerns of being dead and being revived for that long. Personally, I think that's insane. And I'm going to kick this question to you first, Norm. So when we look at the situation, I know that you and I were talking earlier, you kind of looked up on some stuff, and they said it was about 9 minutes that it took for them to get him to where they could transport him. The drop of the pulse was detected about a minute after he collapsed. And then he comes out, and he looks neurologically intact. From your experience, what are the chances that something like this goes up to this point so well?
So, just to be illicitly clear, what neurologically intact means isn't necessarily an indicator of recovery outcome. Neurologically intact means that he can understand commands and he can follow them. So if you tell him, raise your right hand, whereas like a recent stroke victim might raise their left hand or they might blink their eyes, the communication from the brain to the hand functions, and he raises his left hand or right hand, whichever you call out for on command. It is an indicator that the recovery potentially has a good prognosis and outcome, but it at the base level, neurologically intact means that his brain is understanding, receiving, and sending neurologic impulses to all of the limbs, and he can move his body on command.
Okay.
At this point, from what I understand, there's still no verbal communication, but he's able to utilize his limbs to recognize communication.
From what?
He's been writing. They were saying earlier today he has been writing, and one of the first questions that he asked was if they won the game. So that says to me that
such a pro, man.
A football guy. I mean, holy shit, that's just insane. Okay, so sorry, Norm, what were you saying?
I was just saying that it means that he's got the potential to recover well, but it's not necessarily a direct indicator of overall recovery prognosis. The fact that it's happened so fast, in my personal opinion, would lead me to believe if it was a family member, I would be excessively hopeful and elated at the fact that he's recovering already, starting to see signs of improvement. Because even for a stroke victim, this would have been months before they could have reached this type of level. So some of that could lead to his overall physical shape he was in prior to the attack. The cardiac arrest, he could have been in such great health that his body wasn't as shocked in the process. Whereas somebody like myself would have been, several years before I would even noticed I was in the hospital.
Right. Now, one of the questions that I had, they talked a lot in some of these releases over the last couple of days about managing the stress on his lungs and the pressure on his lungs and allowing them to recover. And my theory on this was that there may have been like a puncture or a collapse of a lung as part of the problem that caused him to collapse in the first place. But you said that that's not literally necessarily the case.
It's not something that would be ruled out at this point. They would have noticed that with all the imaging they had done. So
Right.
the fact they hadn't released anything stating that leads me to believe that that's not the case. More than likely, the stress on the lungs is more so just due to the fact that the immobility of the lungs with cardiac arrest, your blood stops pumping, your lungs stop forcing things through, and you end up with blood pooling up in the lungs. In which case, they would lay him on his stomach to relieve pressure on the lungs, allow the blood to drain. The other issue is when you stop your heart from beating and you stop pumping oxygen, you lose oxygen to certain areas of the body, the lungs, the brain, the muscles, other extremity tissues, other organs. And when you're down, the length of time you're down directly correlates to how impactful that damage is. So in a normal situation, if you are in the perfect scenario, you drop while you're in the hospital, the average response time is 2 minutes. Your ability to survive cardiac arrest beyond that, even at the 2 minute mark, you're at 40% chance of survival. And every minute you go out after that, it's another 10% decreased chance. So the fact that he was out for 9 minutes and is already awake is monumental. But what's happening is now you've reintroduced oxygen into these muscles multiple minutes later. So you have these body parts that had no oxygen for that length of time. Now all of a sudden they do again. And the phagocytes and the things in the body that eat at that oxygen, that feed off of it, go kind of insane, almost like a rabid animal that hasn't eaten in weeks. And you end up with what's called hypoxia, where you have permanent damage to some of those areas, which is one of the major concerns with cardiac arrest and having brain damage, because if you have extended hypoxia, compartmentalized syndrome in the brain, you can actually end up with permanent brain damage that's unrecoverable. And we won't know that until he gets further along in recovery. But, my personal thought is when it pertains to the lungs itself, is they may be wanting to ensure that his lungs come back to full health by not putting him under any additional stress while they're already recovering from hypoxia in almost 9 full minutes.
Right, Joseph.
Well, I was just going to say, again, I'm not a medical person, but I have been through several rounds of learning CPR, and that is a life-saving but damaging maneuver.
Time, yes.
It's going to break the sternum. It's going to break ribs. There's
Absolutely.
chances of damaging lungs.
You could absolutely puncture a lung during CPR. If they didn't break a rib during CPR, they did it wrong.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually one of the things I remember learning very much. Every instructor I've ever had said, if you didn't feel a rib snap, you're not doing it right.
Right. It's that's definitely a crucial piece, and it's one of the reasons why I thought that there was the possibility of a puncture at some point. And while I would also like to say really quick, for any of you that are watching this was not T. Higgins' fault. Like I even Norm watched that play. I've watched that play 100 times already, just trying to figure out if I could get any idea. I know Josie's watched it several times. T. Higgins did not do anything wrong.
If the fact that this man is getting death threats for something that, had this not happened, had Demar not went down, which I looked it up because I could never remember what they diagnosed Demar was I can't even say it, comatose cordis. And what happens when severe trauma to the chest disrupts the heart's electrical charge. And I actually saw someone explaining it the other day. He got hit right as his heart was in a very specific rhythm to recharge.
Right.
And the chances of it happening are like slim. You usually see it in sports like baseball, hockey's a common one, lacrosse, because of balls being flung at people's bodies. But back on what you were saying about T. Higgins, the fact that this man is getting death threats for, had this not happened, was a routine hit we talked about it on Sports Report for 45 minutes because it literally happened right before. And I thought it was something to do nothing with football at all because the hit to me looked pretty clean. Like there was nothing. I listened to New Heights podcast, the Kelsey brothers this weekend. Both of them said the same thing. The hit was your normal hit. It was a freak accident. He got hit right at the right time, just right. And this happened, unfortunately, as it is. But it is absolutely not T. Higgins' fault. And for anybody that is sending this man's death threats, you deserve to be punched in the face.
I don't and here's the thing. I understand in a situation where things are emotional, sometimes you want to find somebody to blame. Like Joy Behar and all her intelligence thought it would be a great idea to blame conservatives today for Demar's injury.
You got the same coming from the right too, and blaming COVID for his injury.
It's
COVID vaccines.
Shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. You're not a doctor. You don't play one on TV.
You don't even play a really good politician on TV.
And you know, if the reason why you're so angry is because an uncle played doctor with you, go see a psychiatrist. Quit being angry at other people. You deserve help, but quit making other people have to deal with your bullshit. But as I've looked at this, I've thought, you know, really quick. I do want to say I came across something earlier, and I think it's important to recognize. So when the situation was going on, one of the Bills' assistant athletic trainers was hugely responsible for the fact that Demar is still alive. And I want to find his name, and I want to shout it out because he... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, while you're looking for that, if we're giving shout outs, the coaches for both of those teams, especially Zach Taylor, in recognizing what the coach, his name, the Bills head coach is blanking right now, but the way that Zach Taylor reacted for the Bengals and saw that there was no way that they were going to be able to complete this game, and he went over and talked to the coach and talked to the players, and the way that the coaches handled this was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
So the way before we get back into where I was going, because I found what I was looking for. Both Zach Taylor and and Sean McDermott.
Sean McDermott, thank you. Wasn't
of the Bills. You guys did exactly what you needed to, and that was lead your men and make the right decision for your men. You took care of your men. As a fan of the game, I appreciate that because the core belief of this show is that athletes are people too. And this event on Monday night, while it was extremely tragic, is a very sharp reminder of that very fact. And I want to add a couple other medical questions so that Norm can leave whenever he wants. But before I do that, I want to also say Danny Kellington, the assistant trainer, is one of the assistant physical trainers for the Bills, was out on the field when he recognized that Demar's pulse had stopped and immediately started doing chest compressions and doing CPR. And then the emergency action plan that they practice every year at the arena or at the stadium was activated. They got the defibrillator out there, and thankfully, with all of the work that the medical staff that were present did, Demar was revived. And also a part of the report I saw was that they lost him at the hospital once too. So even more amazing.
It has been unconfirmed. So
okay. No,
so I actually read a report today. His uncle stated that he was in and out of consciousness, but never actually was down and needed to be resuscitated at the hospital.
Okay. All right, so that's okay.
Was a floating rumor.
So but that's good. But I mean, either way, kudos to the medical staff. Down at the bottom of the screen, you will see You can find CPR classes near you by going to the Red Cross website.
Everybody should know how to do that.
Absolutely.
CPR is very important because you never know when you're going to need it, but when you need it, you'll be glad you know it. I do need to get mine updated, but I did have it at one point.
I was going to say mine's, I think, just expired, but.
All right, so Norm, my next question for you on this, with the situation where it's at, what does a recovery look like to where he's at least self-sufficient? We're not talking about football condition because obviously that's not even a thought right now, but just functioning, self-sufficient, can be at home, that type of a scenario. What is the timeline for this type of a thing usually look for that?
That actually is kind of a loaded scenario. It's the prognosis typically is 6 months to a year of recovery just to, feed yourself, be able to communicate properly, do the normal things that makes you a functional adult. We have seen people in as little as 3 months with really good therapy, in which obviously with his resources, he's going to have the best he can have. So,
right.
A 3 to 8 month prognosis of being able to be fully functional if there's no actual brain damage as they get further along, that could be feasible. We won't know the extent of any permanent damage until he gets later on into that therapy. I did want to circle back though and touch base on the commotio cordis, just so people can understand a little bit better. What it is basically is your heart goes through several waves, and if you look at an EKG, the absolute lowest peak is called your T wave, and when you're actually directly below Josie's face, so you're on the your T wave, as you hit the very bottom, that's when your heart, if you can see my hand, when your heart squeezes down, you're looking directly at that lowest point of that wave, and when it pumps back up, you're at the top of your S wave. So as your heart's doing this, which you do this 80 times in a minute, so that's one every 2/3 of a second. In order for commotio cordis to happen, you have to have impact in the chest of a significant amount at the absolute second that your heart's at the base of that T wave, in which case it's basically like taking a balloon, deflating it, and then wrapping it up in something and trying to blow it back up. Your heart just won't have the force behind it to pump again. And the only way to make it pump again is to defibrillate it and get it pumping, because you interrupted the electronic signal. You actually see this a lot in military personnel with concussion grenades. If you throw a concussion grenade, somebody's heart's running on average 140, 150 beats a minute in that scenario. You're in battle, your heart's just absolutely pumping. You have 140 chances in a 1 minute window to hit right on that wave. A normal person, well, for him, he would have been in that 140 range, on the field playing, heart pumping. The chances of him taking an impact that hits him at the exact moment, pretty rare, but if you get unlucky enough to be hit in that moment, this is the outcome you could have. There's nothing in protocol that could have ever saved him from this, So for the people looking at it as, negligence or a unnecessary risk of the game, this is an absolute freak accident, like a bird flying into the propeller of a prop plane.
It's like just Randy Johnson hitting a bird with a baseball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just so absolutely rare.
And one of the questions that I wanted to ask on that.
I got it. 1, 2. When you go. Next.
So, when you look at this type of an injury, I've noticed, at least from what I understand, something like this occurring is more common in youth sports than it is as you get older.
Get out of my head.
So my question to you is, outside of, obviously, because I know there's been a big movement for schools getting defibrillators at athletic events to make sure that there's one there just in case something like this happens, or some type of a cardiac arrest event. Outside of, obviously, the CPR training and the presence of defibrillators at youth games, are there any other precautions that youth sports should be taking, or even sports in general, whether it's youth, college, the NFL, MLB, whatever, that they should be taking to make this event more preventable?
In youth
or
sports.
and respond and improve response on that. Sorry.
So one of the things that they've already started in a lot of youth sports, and I've seen it at my daughter's high school football games, is they actually have an off-duty police officer, or not off-duty, he's there on duty, but it's an extra shift he'll pick up where he's there with the team during the game. And being a police officer with his unit there, he has a defibrillator in the unit. And he's fully first aid trained, fully CPR trained. And then they have obviously their athletic trainers on the field as well. Having those at the games obviously is a huge plus. Response time, that's absolute monumental. You cannot have higher than 2-minute response time for the initiation of CPR. The rate of death beyond that is just insane. It's like I was saying, your first 2 minutes, if you start CPR at 2 minutes, you're at a 40% chance of survival. Every 30 seconds you wait after that, you're down by 10%. So
Wow.
the risk of someone dying. Now, just because you start CPR doesn't mean you're going to be successful. You can start it even at 1 minute, but every minute that you continue CPR without them coming back, you're decreasing their overall chance of survival by an additional 10 to 15%. So that part of it is really, really hard because you have to have that quick response. So it should be, you see somebody fall, the trainer should be there within seconds. They should be running to them right as they hit the floor. So that kind of training, response time from hit the floor to trainer on field should be quick. As soon as the officer on duty sees that, he should already be going to the car to get the defib just in case. Or they should have the defibrillator on the side of the field. It should be something that's always there.
Yeah, that makes more sense to have it right there.
And to prevent this from happening in the first place, colleges and the NFL and all major sports, realistically, when they do a sports clearance for even just a sports physical, one of the key things they have to have is a EKG with cardiac clearance. So if they come into a primary care or an urgent care and they get that sports physical, if there's anything outside of it printing off saying normal EKG, that goes to a cardiologist to be overread and signed.
Is that because if it's a different rhythm, it makes things like this more common?
Yes. So if you have like an arrhythmia or any kind of a pre-existing heart condition, your risk of anything cardiac happening on the field, whether it's commotio cordis or anything else, is going to go up. It could even just be a heart arrhythmia with extra exercise. You increase your chances of your arrhythmia itself causing a heart problem. So, when you get to college and above, it's mandatory for every physical you do every year. And then they look for changes from year to year. But with high school and below, especially Pop Warner and all of the private leagues like the Parks and Recreations, all they want is a basic physical. You go in, they move your joints around, make sure you can do a squat and lift your arms, and you're done. So I think an improved process for sports physicals, especially for kids, I think that would really, really improve the numbers and make it a lot less common.
So is it? So with the cardiac, because essentially, isn't it basically a cardiac stress test? Is what they do?
Yeah.
Okay.
When
So,
you
get into a professional sports level, they do what they call a 2-hour stress test, where you hook up and you run on a treadmill and do all the things that put your heart under stress. When you come into an office for high school or college, the college physicals are just a basic baseline EKG. So all that's going to find is pre-existing heart conditions. It's not going to find something that's activity induced.
Okay. So obviously, at least enhancing that at the college level is going to be important. Should they be doing more EKGs at the high school level? Is that one of the things?
That's what I'm saying. Is I think what we should do is we should start doing the 2-hour stress test at the college level because of the level of competition and the physicality of it. And I think at the high school and lower level, we should at least be doing EKGs on every single person that needs a sports physical.
So, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and you talk about college level, and in some ways, especially with college football, it's more brutal. Like we were talking about it on Monday, you see more broken legs, torn ACLs, things like that in college ball than you do in the NFL, just because it's still a amateur level. It's still these guys learning. Not everything is known.
Right.
And so, yeah, I tend to agree. I did have one question, Norm, on again, we want Demar to be healthy and live the most normal life he can. I wanted to ask, is there a chance that he could return to NFL or on a pro level?
In my opinion, I think what it's going to come down to is we have to see where his mental development goes. If he comes out of this with full mental awareness, I would absolutely want them to do some kind of a recognition and reactiveness type of a testing, I guess I would say, because if you think about it this way, he could come back to full functionality, full physicality, to where he can bench press every amount he ever did. He can run a mile just as fast as he ever did. But where the breakdown is going to come in for me personally is the length of time he was without oxygen to the brain. Until he has to utilize that section of the brain that could potentially be impacted, we don't know if it's impacted. So if his recognition and response area of the brain has been impacted, let's say he's out, running a play, and he is faced with a situation where a guy's headed face first at him, and he needs to recognize, react, and move, and his brain misfires, and he doesn't move. He's going to take an unaltered hit direct to his body.
Right,
so
and that's
because, everybody knows, especially when you're at that level of playing, if you're about to get hit, there's certain ways you brace yourself, you roll with it, you try to do things to keep you from being injured. If you just stay straight up and upright and you take the hit full face on, the chances of you being injured are going to go through the roof. And if he misfires and doesn't respond or react in time, that could be really, really bad. So I think until he undergoes some sort of testing that can prove that his recognition to reaction time is at a high enough level, I don't think it would be safe for him to return to professional sports, especially football. I mean, if it was something like, say,
baseball, basketball, even.
Yeah, something like golf. I mean, baseball, if a ball's headed for his head and he doesn't react in enough time, that could be bad. So the reaction time there still needs to be. But, something on a lower level professional sport wouldn't be such a big deal. But something in like football, you've got a 250 plus pound guy running at you at basically 25 miles an hour. That's going to hurt if you don't move.
The whole reason they introduced the blindside tackle is because you're basically taking a hit that you're not prepared for, and that was hurting a lot of quarterbacks.
Right. So if he doesn't have that recognition to response time ratio, I think it would be a huge mistake for anyone to let him step on the field.
Now, with this though, in your experience, now is this the stress test that they do at the NFL level that we're talking about moving at least into college? Is this something that they do like for baseball and the NBA? And is this something that they should be looking at younger levels there too?
I would say yes. It's something they are doing at all professional sports levels, just because they're doctors that are paid by the industry want to know that these people are high enough level that they can give them the clearance to go out there and perform at that level. If we were to do that in college in those same sports, and realistically, that goes for any potential contact sport. I mean, even something like rugby or anything that's of that nature should all be tested. Even soccer. Soccer is more of a contact sport than people assume, and it should be tested as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and I know they do stress tests like that for MMA and wrestling and combat sports too, because I mean, a bump or a kick or a hit can do a lot of things to the heart that we don't understand.
Absolutely.
And when you look at wrestling, I mean, you look at how much physicality goes into that, even though it's fake.
Choreographed. You know how I feel about that word.
Choreographed.
Right.
It takes a really good physical health to be able to do something like when Mick Foley got thrown off of the top of the Hell in a Cell cage by Undertaker.
Or Jeff Hardy taking a spear in midair from Edge while his body's hanging there.
So I'm
I
going to show my
mean,
age here, but the ring bell being smashed into Ricky the Dragon's throat
Yes. Yes.
near killed him. I watched that live, and
that's
that those kinds of things, even though they're choreographed, if you're not at a high enough physical level, you're going to take some incidental damage. Your body has to be able to withstand it. They should have a high level of testing to make sure that you're at the peak shape you can be in to withstand those kinds of incidental injuries.
it's I mean, more information is always better, and colleges can justify adding, the facilities because you can use your students that are going through medical classes
Right,
to staff and get the
That's,
information so that you're keeping the cost at a very minimal.
right,
I mean,
You
they
know,
already
it,
do
it
that. Most trainers on a college team are students who
right.
are learning to be medical trainers,
Um,
whatever.
Even at the high school level, most of the trainers that come out to
Yeah,
the
I
games,
was.
they're picking up extra hours during their internships. They're
Mhm.
all in their clinical rotations, picking up all the extra hours they can. So I
Yeah.
don't see why we couldn't even utilize them at the high school level and say, hey, we're going to send all the people from all the high schools in this certain radius of your college to you guys to perform these stress tests for free to make sure they're safe.
Well, and then again, like even on the high school level, usually you've got students as trainers. That's not more things for them to learn, preparing them more for down the road.
Absolutely.
There's ways to make these things work that you kind of eat the cost, yes, but it's for the health of your athletes. But make it work for you. Let you use it as learning tools for other things.
Right.
Absolutely. No, and I agree completely. It's, any way that you can help, that you can provide an education and a service at the same time, you're probably going to come out ahead because it means you're able to teach them to do it right. You know that it's done right, and the cost is much more minimal. And so when the student gets out into the fields that they're being trained in, they're better off, and the subject
Right.
gets their needs met
Mm-hmm.
in a much more financially efficient manner. So it's one of those things that I think from a from a normal human standpoint, I think it's a great. I think it would be great. Every college has the ability to do these tests through their medical program, and they take care of the high schools in the area. So that's extra subjects that they get free of charge.
Not only
Um,
that, it's a recruiting opportunity to get kids interested in programs at their school. You
yeah,
got them there for 20
Yes.
minutes to 2 hours, depending on the test they're doing. That's all free pitch time.
that's extra time to talk to that local athlete that's not sure where
Right.
they're going yet.
Right. So,
You
I
know,
mean, it's a win-win all the way around. The only
absolutely.
thing I see it becoming a problem is obviously with the number of high school students. How do you make this something where it's facilitatable in between sports or over the summer? So, for my personal opinion, is you do it on a rotating schedule. You do every month by a certain set of last names. It may not be at the beginning of your season, but it keeps all of your students on a 1 year rotation of having this follow up testing. So,
And
some of your students may get it halfway through the season, but they also just had it halfway through last season. So it's not like you're being negligent by letting them start without this report. It was done recently, just not right before the season.
now, one of the questions that I have on that, obviously, the physicality of a college athlete versus the physicality of a high school athlete is very different because a high school athlete still has a lot more development to go.
Right.
What about in those scenarios as a way to work on stemming the tide of people and make it more accessible to everyone? Is you do a 1 hour test instead of two. That
At a high
way,
school level, that would be feasible.
because and my question is an hour going to be enough time to detect anything major that you could be
Well,
concerned about at that level?
this is a parental advisory explicit show, so allow me to paint you a picture.
Okay.
What do you assume your heart rate gets up to in about 5 minutes worth of a double session of sex?
I
I
mean, 140 to 150. I mean, that
I
seems
would have
pretty
said
reasonable.
160 to 170.
Now, try doing that for an hour.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
That's
that's
enough time.
yeah.
Impossible.
Right. It's enough time to see what your heart's going to do.
And I kind of figured it might be, but it's,
Better
it's
be a
just
gallon of water next to the bed.
That sandwich and maybe some kind of no-nos or something.
You get it's put a couple of Red Bulls by the bed. If you don't drink the Red Bull during, make sure there's some Jaeger, some vodka next to the bed, so you have a drink for
Gatorade.
after.
I'm just going to set
rehydrate afterwards.
I'm just going to set me up one of those little roadside like stands that you have like on the marathons, where you run up and grab where you drink
A
one,
banana, a Gatorade.
Back at it.
Yeah, but the question becomes, who are you paying to hand out the banana and the Gatorade? And what else are they there for?
I mean,
where's that banana going?
You're talking about the little bananas, right? We don't need any kind of jealousy.
Which banana? I mean, it's the only thing I see is little bananas. So
right. But yeah, I think
I'm white. I'm white and English. All I see are little bananas.
But yeah, I absolutely think that 1 hour, if you're going high school level, is more than enough stress test time. I think 2 hours at the college level even could be pushing it. College, yes, you do have a high level of physicality. Most of their injuries come by way of immature technique, as far as they're not training the right way. Yeah, they're trying to overtrain because they want to be the best. They're not,
or they're not training enough. If you're like Travis Kelce,
right, and you're not getting recovery time and other things. So a lot of their injuries come by way of those things, and you see less injuries at the professional level because these people not only have the absolute best trainers, they put them on the best programs.
They know exactly how to take a hit or give a hit.
Right. They've spent more time just learning those things, how to recover, how to properly, feed their body the nutrients it needs during that recovery, instead of being out drinking all night like they do in college. Just an overall better program.
We talked about it on Hardwood last night. I mean, LeBron James spends $1 million a year just on his recovery in a sport that's not heavy contact. Now, does he put his body through a lot? Yes, he does. Like basketball players, the jumping, the running, like they're putting.
And basketball is still a physical game.
It is a physical game. It's not football, but it is. I mean, you look at when they're in the paint, in the middle, in the bumping, in the and like the.
Well, and there's a lot of. Well, the thing of it is, like with basketball, there's a lot of collisions, like because these guys run into each other all the time during basketball games, but they're not wearing pads and they're still running. Yeah. So like there's still, there's still that car crash effect that you get as an NFL player, but they don't have pads and they're falling onto hardwood instead of grass.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to put a thought process into your head and see what you guys think about this. But when you talk about recovery and you talk about, especially going more into college, not necessarily high school, but more in the college and professional level sports, and you're thinking, okay, well, we need to worry about recovery for all of these students who are going through this really physical game, and then the next day they wake up and they're battered and beat up and they don't feel real well, their body hurts. One of the fastest ways to recover, and it's been proven hands down, is 2,000 mLs of saline with a vitamin cocktail in it. Mm-hmm. You can recover instantly, damn near. I mean, I've seen people go from full-on muscle cramping after a marathon to ready to run another marathon in 2 hours by way of IV with vitamins. Now, you've got these students who are training, right, in all these different colleges and these different areas. They need to learn IV techniques. Why wouldn't you proactively, after a game, let them have a 1 hour cool down in like an ice bath or, massage therapy for, an hour, whatever they're going to do to have that cool down, and then put them on a 1 hour IV drip with vitamins, let them go home, sleep, take in some proper nutrition, eating wise. The next day, their muscles would physically recover I would say maybe 50 to 60% faster and more complete than if they didn't do that.
So and that's interesting because I've heard of that, and I know because like there'll be even like here down here in Phoenix, you can you can call a place and they'll come give you an IV drip with vitamins in it
For hangovers.
and
Absolutely.
for hangovers, or if you just wake up and you're feeling like shit, they'll bring it over to you, and you know they park right outside your house. You go, you sit there, they play some nice soft music so you're not overwhelmed,
So
and you know.
Dang, I want this in Texas.
So just so you know, the only licensing they need for that, if they were going to do this for colleges, is you don't even need MD level students. You could take LPNs, EMTs, nurses, all the different levels of healthcare. Anything above a medical assistant and a doctor and below can facilitate that need. So you could have 50 EMT students from 10 different schools just making trips every Saturday night or every Friday night to these sports events, pop everybody with a couple of IVs, monitor them for an hour, unplug them all and go. It wouldn't be that hard to do.
I mean, and now we see the hospital charge for saline, but the actual cost of saline is not great because obviously it's just salt water.
I paid $13 for a box of 12 1,000 ml bags.
So yeah, I mean exactly. Like it's the cost is very small on that, but the impact on the physical recovery of your athletes is so great that and again, you've got access to labor that you don't have to pay for,
right?
Because they need the experience as training hours.
Yep.
So I mean, the Air Force and the Navy get pilots training hours by having them do flyovers of football, baseball, and basketball games and all that crap.
Right.
And it's, you know, all they're doing is puttering a plane over a stadium and then flying home, but it still counts towards their pilot hours.
It gives them about an hour and 15 minutes because they got to fly there, fly over, and fly back.
Exactly. And then, you know, so when you look at this, there's other ways that you can utilize that same process, and this is one of them. You can take two birds with one stone, and then you get your athletes, they get more, you're able to help them establish better care for their bodies at a younger point so that you're able to get more out of them on the backside.
So
at least that's how it looks to me.
I feel like I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I feel like that's one of the issues in sports in general is it's not being thought about in the high school and even before junior high and levels about longevity. What do I need to do to keep my body performing this way for what I'm going to be doing? If you go pro, you look at guys like LeBron and Brady who've been playing these respective sports for 30 years and like they didn't probably get into the really good recovery programs until they were pros and could have that money. So if we started teaching that sooner, it would help a lot of these kids. We do so much now to watch out for CTE in kids. Like we need to think about the entire body, what these kids are going through to make these dreams that they have come true.
Something you can maybe we ought to start a petition or something later down the road, but something you have in some high schools right now is they're starting a sports medicine program.
My school had that
as one of their options for an elective. And so these kids are learning ACE raps and they're learning, you know, muscular skeletal kind of things and just real basics. They also learn how to splint somebody for a break on the field. And these students are at every game. They're like assistants to the actual trainer at every game. So if you're going to do that, why not expand that program just slightly? Why not have those kids also stay after the game for an hour with the students and do some low-level recovery? Nothing invasive, no needles, but maybe ice rub downs, maybe some of the other things that would help promote less pain the next day. You know, let's do some range of motion and flexibility stretches before you go home and tighten up. You know, things like that.
Well, and there are massage there. Well, and here's the thing: when a massage, and I know this because of Martha going to
Right.
massage therapy school, like when you go to massage therapy school, sports massage is one of the things that they teach. Everybody
It's one of
learns
the
it.
first things you teach.
Exactly, that was because that was one of the first things that she learned. And you can utilize those students that have been through that initial point, and there's massage therapy things all over, and it doesn't have to be an hour massage for each athlete, even
No,
if
I'm
it's a
talking
quick
about an
20
hour
minute rub
total
down.
time for the team.
Yeah, exactly. 10-15 minutes, something quick just to relieve some of
Right.
that pressure,
So it
make
should
sure you
just
get
be a
the blood
simple,
flowing back into the muscles, stuff like that.
yeah, it should just be a simple rub down to get the blood flow, maybe a couple of range of motion movements just to bring, knees to the chest, do some windmills, get the body in full range of motion. So when you go through the muscle cool down, you don't cramp up, you don't freeze up. And then if we start that thought process for kids at the high school level, when they go to college, and then you ramp it up a little bit with now you're having the IV therapy, just 1,000 ml bag IV at the end of the night after the game, they're now into a little bit heightened mindset of proper recovery. And then by the time you get to that professional level, they've already got anywhere from 4 to 8 years of foundational understanding of what their body needs to recover. So that when they do get to that highest level of the game, it's not like, oh shit, my trainer's all over my ass. I have to learn how to take care of my body. It should be something we start and ramp up instead of, you can't just say to a high school kid, here's the entire book of how to take care of your body, start now. You have to start off with a smaller version. Take care of your body like this. Then when you go to college, okay, take care of your body like this. So it's a graduated process. And just like with the sport itself, every level you go up, you perform at a different level. You need to recover at a different level. And
Well,
that's something we should look at putting into place.
You mentioned sports medicine in high school, and I grew up here in Texas, where football is life,
Life,
and
yeah,
and then I also went to a pretty wealthy, well-off school. We had a sports medicine and had trainers who worked with actual trainers. I know because I tried to get into that program. And yeah, you're right. They learn things like wrapping, they learn ice baths, they learn things like that. But it would be very easy to add in, maybe not needles, because getting the right vein on, as someone who had to do it in military, hitting that right vein isn't always as easy, depending on the
right.
person.
And you can't really have
And it's
somebody sign a waiver of liability until they're
yeah,
18. So you'd want
Right.
to keep it away from high schools.
and it's really easy to shred a vein and things like that. And
Right.
so, but yeah, the massages, the taking these kids and teaching them something else that's also going to help these athletes.
Right.
One of the things that I think is important when we look at educational institutions, and I'm gonna put high school in this topic as well, high school, college, whatever. Your job is to prepare the individuals that are within your walls learning for the future that they are going towards. And
Right.
if you have individuals that are focused on athletics, because yes, not every high school athlete is going to be a pro athlete. We know that. But a lot of high school athletes end up in college, at least for a while, or they, maybe they go into scouting or coaching. They work at, a lot of them end up working athletic adjacent. But also because you've been in athletics, especially something physical like football, aftercare and taking care of your body as you get older is still going to be important. So you can
Absolutely.
teach these kids these habits now to create this as part of their education so that they have these habits in their life. Because somebody that just, how many, we all know people that just played football in high school that in their 30s, their knees are just complete shit.
I
Like,
didn't.
I played baseball and 2 years of baseball and some bull riding, and my knees are shit. And I'm in my mid-30s.
I didn't play
So-
that much sports, but the military killed my knees, and then I was 30 years old and tore my ACL meniscus. So,
and that's the thing is, if you can, for any of these individuals, if you can instill these habits at a younger age, you're more likely to see a positive outcome from them than if you keep waiting.
Less impactful injuries. Absolutely.
Right.
And to hit on your statement, not every child that you see go through high school sports is going to end up in professional sports.
Most
But
are.
if you want to play devil's advocate and reverse that thought process, how many professional sports athletes do you know that didn't play sports in high school?
Not very many.
So, right, they had to have played somewhere at some time.
Yeah.
So if we
Right.
didn't teach them how to care for their body at those lower levels, how are they going to know to take care of them at the higher level?
You do get that rare guy, that rare athletic freak that walks onto some college somewhere.
My grandfather, actually. My grandfather played for the Denver Broncos back a million years ago before the 49ers were even a team. And him and a friend of his were on a business trip, woke up hungover one morning, and for giggles decided to go to walk-on tryouts. Now, this is back when your average size of a lineman was 6'1" to 6'2", maybe 225 to 250-ish. My grandfather walked in the door at 6'4" and almost 300 pounds. Fully
Jesus.
athletic, built, ready to
That's
go.
my size. Jesus. And that's still about 60 pounds on me.
So he went to the walk-on tryouts just for giggles, just with a hangover on a business trip. He's like, yeah, let's try it, and made the team by mistake. Now, he was not a starter by any means, but he was on the practice squad, and he was on the field in full dress for several games for 2 full seasons. And he never played anything outside of just Pop Warner, But again, he jacked his knees up to the point where he was never able to play again because he didn't know how to take care of his body.
And yeah, that's why I said you gotta the younger you can teach it. I'm still a believer that we should be taking away full contact football until high school. Because that will reduce concussion risk because you're reducing the damage on the brain and allowing it to develop more before that shock. I think we would see. I understand the difficulty that it brings, but for the safety of these kids, you almost have to.
There is a different school of thought on that I've not seen a lot of people talk about, and it fizzled after a very brief point in time. Anything prior to the high school level football, they had talked about running a what do they call it? It was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7-man squads.
Yeah,
7-on-7.
Where they would have a 7-on-7, and it was, instead of basing it off of age or off of grade level, they actually based it off of size and body weight. So when you were supposed to be in a matchup, you were always matched with people very close to equal size. So you wouldn't have a team of 5'9" kids on one side and a team of 4'3" kids on the other side, just because their grade levels matched up. And if you were to do that, then a physicality standpoint, you have a lot less chaos because you have less people on the field. So it's easier to see your people. It's easier to move around. And the chance of having a fully blindsided hit coming is going to be much less. But also, one of the caveats to the proposed rules for that league would have been, instead of having that 5-yard bump rule, you would have a 5-yard buffer where the defensive backs had to be a minimum 5 yards back from the line at the time of the snap, so that there was no real heavy impact right at the start. So they had time to kind of create space. And it led to, when they did it as a couple of trials, it was more of a run and gun kind of a passing style game versus a heavy hit running game, and one where you have your linebackers hitting much smaller receivers because they were on a blocking or a passing or a screen route. It kept things a lot more even and a lot less likely for kids to get hurt. And it was less impact than you would see in like a high school game. But that idea fizzled. It didn't go very far because parents didn't want their kids being sheltered, which I think is asinine.
That's what you get into here in Texas, because actually 7-on-7 is pretty popular here. It usually comes up in spring once football's over. Most high schools have a 7-on-7 something or other after the regular season is over. But yes, I've heard that same argument is because Pop Warner is still as popular down here as it was 10 years ago. Like, you still got the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. And I'm a dad of a little kid. Like, she's 4.5. I can't imagine. Now, mind you, I have a daughter, not a boy. But even if she was a boy, I can't imagine putting her in football next year. Like, I just can't imagine her taking hits like that next year.
Sorry, my brain just went to one of my favorite movies, Little Giants.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
I'll show you intimidation. Oh, goodness.
I love that movie. One of my favorite movies.
For me personally, I really think junior high should be your absolute minimum starting level for any sports. And in junior high, I kind of do agree in some aspect that you should have more of a flag football or a 7-on-7, one of the two for a junior high, and then a full-fledged ready-to-go tackle football in high school. But I think the caveat's going to be learning more about that recovery and that management of body pain. If a kid gets injured on the field, they shouldn't have the mindset of let's
keep going,
get this over with and get back on the field as fast as we can. It should be more of, okay, let's get you off the field and make sure you're properly cared for. Enjoy watching the rest of the game.
And see, that's really that right there. What you just said has got to come from the coaches. The coaches have got to take responsibility for those players, because I'm sorry, as a player, like, you're in that adrenaline, you're just like, I got to get back out there, especially when you've been a part of this team and they preach so much in sports like that. Your team, you got to be there for the team. Right. And in that moment, the adrenaline's pumping. You want to be there for the team. The coach has got to step in and be like, no, you're done.
They have to take a note out of the MMA book in that aspect. It's not just the coaches. It's the coaches, the trainers, and the officials. The officials kind of have to take some responsibility in that. In MMA, look at Tim Sylvia when he fought Frank Mir. Frank Mir broke his fucking arm. And he was mad because they made him stop fighting because he was willing to keep fighting. And Frank Mir's response was, look, dude, I don't want to hurt the guy, but if he's insistent, put him back in the ring and I'll rip his fucking arm off so he has to quit. You don't want to have that mentality. You just cannot – you can't have a guy with that much adrenaline, that much desire to get in there and play the game be the ultimate deciding factor of whether or not he walks back on the field. The coach has to step in and say, let me save you from yourself. Or the trainer has to tell the coach, he shouldn't be on the field right now. He's not safe.
You gave great – in that made me think we even saw that on the pro level, 2 weeks ago? When the guy – was it the Patriots 7? Was it the Patriots? A player,
one of the players,
a teammate had to call out and call a timeout because he noticed that another teammate was not okay after a hit. He was stumbling.
And that was a failure on the spotters in that game, because I was watching that game live when that happened, and I was fucking screaming at my TV.
Yes.
That was a huge failure on the spotters in those games. And that game, and what pissed me off on that was that the NFL released a statement on it because there was a lot of fucking criticism, as there should have been. And the NFL was like, no, the spotters did everything. There wasn't any signs. Are you serious? We could see it on TV.
The guy stood up and then wobbled. And then as he was trying to line up, he wasn't even half there.
You could tell he had no idea where he was. No idea where he was.
Well, you see it with fighters a lot, though, because they'll get rocked and then the ref gives them a second to recover, which sure, sometimes you can, but that's why Let Him Die Dean got the name Let Him Die, because he a lot of times will let somebody take 4 and 5 extra hits to the face while they're already in a spot where they can't even tell which direction the hits are coming from. And you can't have that. The referee has to be there. They're in the ring. They see what's happening. They have to step in and say, we're done. You're done. I know you want to keep fighting, and I commend you for that, but you're done. And that goes across all sports, though. You should have it in football. You should have it in basketball. I've seen people in basketball get up after taking a fall from, rim height down to the floor. They get up, and you can tell they're shaking it off. They're limping. Their shoulder hurts. Any of those injuries, especially if their head hits the concrete or the
hardwood.
The hardwood. If they if they hit with that kind of an impact and they get up and you can tell that they're not all the way right, their coach should send someone in and pull them off, even if just long enough to let them recover. Someone has to save these athletes from themselves because their adrenaline isn't going to let them stop. They need to have somebody advocate for them and say, hey, this can't happen. You need to be off. You're done. And
basketball is bad about that. They don't stop for nothing. There's guys just laying on the court like, oh, it's 4-on-5. That guy's laying on the court. Like, we need to do something. And I can get, just like with the NFL, you have to have rules on faking injuries to stop play, and that's not okay. And those rules should exist. But
that's why they should have a neutral trainer that evaluates the injury. You can tell when someone's faking an injury as a trainer. And people say, oh, they can fake it. It's that's what it is. No, if they have an injury, there's manipulational techniques we can use that tell us whether or not they're faking the injury. If we put pressure in certain areas and they don't respond, or we ask them to push and pull, and you can tell that they're kind of half-assing the push or the pull, you can tell whether it's half-assed or if it's pressure related due to pain. They teach it at the lowest level of physical examination for nurses. So if you can do that, why not employ a nurse or a trainer that's neutral, that's paid by the league, not by each team, aside from their own trainers, to be on the sideline at all times. If somebody's injured, that's the person that does the eval to say either you're safe to be on the field or not. And that should be in all sports. It really should.
I like the NFL's I like that the NFL added the independent neurological consultant that has to clear somebody before they can go back if there's concern of a concussion.
Somebody knocking.
Right. And I like that the NFL also added the spotters that are in the stands watching the game, and their job is to be able to see stuff from a distance and look for, things like a player wobbling and stuff like that. That's why I was critical of the spotters in that Patriots game, because they should have caught that.
Absolutely.
And, but those independent medical personnel, those are, I think that's, there's a way that you can expand on it. You don't have to have them there for just concussion protocol. When you have, especially like in the NBA, when you have somebody in your, that goes down, trying to make sure they're not stopping play, independent trainer should be running out there with the team trainers and just paying attention.
Yep.
Helping out.
Yeah, exactly.
And their job is to confirm that everything is legit.
Yeah, and if it's not legit, what's the penalty? Well, the penalty can come in many different ways. It could be a penalty of, okay, well, we had to take time now to stop the game. You lose a timeout.
Yeah, and the NFL, what the NFL is doing now is if they sense that there was a injury that was fake to stop play, the team and potentially the player get fined.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is pretty reasonable. But I would think if you have, a lot of these owners, it's just money. They're more focused on the win. So you still have to have, I think you still get, you still look at the potential, depending on the situation, of in-game punishment, but at least fines, possible draft pick, forfeits, suspension, stuff like that, all pretty reasonable depending on the circumstances.
Absolutely, depending on the gravity of the situation.
Right. But as a coach and as an athlete, as a trainer, as a coach, as a trainer, as a referee, the safety is very important. These are our modern day gladiators, but they are also human beings and deserve to be safe as possible. So part of that is saving these players from themselves when they are not wanting to accept the truth that they need to step back, even if it's for a quarter or whatever, that they need to take that step back, because longevity is more important in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. You can be here for one game or 15 games. It's your choice. But, if we don't have somebody on the field that's reminding you of that and remembering for you, hey, there's more to what you're doing than just this one game. You need to step away. It's like having that moral, emotional, and mental support that's
Right.
reminded of why you're doing what you're doing. They have them even in workplaces now outside of the sports arena. You have a bad day at work, they have somebody on site that says, hey, you are not having a good day. People have noticed your attitude. Let's go talk. That's not that much different, man. Just because we're using our brains instead of our bodies, somebody's got to check us every once in a while and say, hey, what you're doing is not okay. It's bad for you. You're going to run your way into a bad situation. Take a step back. And we need to have people in sports that can do that for these people.
What's up, Justin? Yeah, no, and I agree. I think, we all, as humans, there's all opportunities where we needed to be saved from ourselves. It's a human thing. This isn't an athlete thing. It's a human thing. We all get hyper focused and dedicated and don't want to quit. And sometimes somebody has to be there and say, hey, you're fucking up, bud, or you need to take a step back, man. It's accountability. And it's not a bad thing. Accountability is not a bad thing. I've actually grown to value it instead of fear it, because the more accountability I have in my life, the better things get. So I think that opportunities where we can improve that to help these individuals and also do things to protect them will put us in a much better position than when we leave these guys to their own devices. Because yes, they have free will, but when you're in that mode, you're in that mode, and that's activating primal urges where you're attacking, fighting, killing. It's that same section of the brain, especially at the pro level, that's getting activated in those situations. Somebody's got to pull you back from that sometimes. But all right, okay. So we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes. There's still a couple of things I want to talk about, but Norm, if you are not wanting to hang around, we're going to get more into some of the other actual deeper aspects on a couple of the pieces of this. So if you don't want to stick around, you don't have to. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was fun. It was a great time. Got to talk about some things that actually are important to me, which is, the youth of our nation and how we can better educate them in their own healthcare.
And Norm, I would like to extend an invite to have you on our flagship show, The Sports Report, which airs on Mondays. I'm sure we're still going to be talking about Demar next Monday, so I would love to have you on and talk a little bit more about this.
Especially discuss as the developments come out over the next week.
Yes.
I'm sure there'll be more information to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that I'm free and available, if you guys want to have an extra voice of not necessarily reason, but
none of us are voices of reason. None of us.
He ever say, yeah, no, you're. I know better than to use you as a voice of reason.
I would hope so.
But yeah, I'll reach out to you, Norm, about Monday. We'll see we'll make it work. All right, thank you. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. All right, so now I want to talk about Skip Bayless.
Oh, I was waiting for this. The lizard man cometh.
Mr. Lizard Fucker himself. No. So here's the thing that I want to say. And I know that there are going to be some people that are surprised by this.
I'm here tonight.
Skip Bayless's tweet. And if you don't know, just take a second to scroll through Twitter and search the name Skip Bayless and you'll see it. Skip Bayless's tweet about what the NFL was going to do about the Bills-Bengals game because of the implications was in extremely poor taste. And as a comic, I can tell you the timing was dog shit horrible.
As journalists, I can tell you that was just thinking with your pen and not thinking with your brain.
And that's exactly and that's exactly what it was. It was because at that moment you think about this, for any of us that are watching that game, and Skip, that's part of his job. He's got to watch that game. We're all sitting here and we've just watched a man almost die. Skip is 72. He's closer to death than most of us, unfortunately. So he's probably trying to think about other things. Like, again, I'm not defending Skip's tweet. It was in poor taste and poor timing. But I also don't think it was as big of a deal as it was made out to be. Because the question was something that needs to be answered. We're going to actually talk about, because the NFL has put some information out in the last few hours about what's going to happen. And I've got some graph. Yes, they have. And we'll go over that here in a little bit. But ultimately, like as a Chiefs fan, that game Monday night had an impact on whether or not I was going to get to see the AFC Championship potentially go through Arrowhead again. And so I was as I'm concerned about Demar, and that obviously we can see that they're canceling the game. Which they should have suspended it. They should have suspended the game. It's completely reasonable. The question is, what's going to happen? Because this isn't a week one game or, an earlier week game or something where we can just move it to a neutral site, flex another game around and everything be done. At this point, it impacts the schedule of everything else for it to not get played. There are even conversations today on all of the sports talk about what's going to happen. What are they going to do? We all care about Demar's safety, and it's been perfectly made clear that that is the most important thing. But this game still is going to continue. They haven't canceled the entire Week 18 slate. All of those games are going to happen. So the question does still remain. Now, is Skip a heartless lizard?
Yes.
Absolutely. Do I think that Skip's tweet is why Shannon wasn't on Undisputed on Tuesday? You bet your fucking ass I do.
Skip's tweet plus what had just happened between him and Skip not 2 weeks ago.
Right. And honestly, I said this in our group chat. When basketball season ends and Undisputed wraps for its summer finale, that will be the end of Shannon Sharp on Undisputed.
Yep.
Skip Bayless will not go anywhere. Shannon Sharp will either move towards his own show, which I could see, or maybe they transition him over onto was that Nick Wright show? First Things First? The one that's on before Garten show? First Things First? Yeah, okay. So maybe they transition him to be opposite Nick Wright, because that gives, that gives a more interesting battle, because Shannon Sharp has played for the Broncos and Nick Wright deep throats more Chiefs dick than I do.
And LeBron dick.
And LeBron dick. Like he sucks more Chiefs dick and LeBron dick than Dan and I do. And that's saying something. And so you still get but it's not as much of there's not as much conflict. It's more discussion about the topics, which I think is a much better way to do things, because as somebody with anxiety, watching these two guys argue every day to the point you can tell Shannon's no longer acting. He's pissed off because Skip is an asshole. Like that's hard to watch as somebody with anxiety. Like it actually makes me uncomfortable.
Yep.
I purposely woke up the other day just to catch. I woke up early to watch Skip by himself, which that show was absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. Watching Skip just talk is the worst thing in the world. You could tell he was straining. I didn't make it through the first hour.
I didn't either. I didn't either.
I pretty consistently watch Undisputed every day. If I don't watch it when it's live, which I don't watch it as much live, I listen to it on Spotify. While I'm working, it's just, background noise. I'm learning more, stuff like that. And when, and even when I went back and tried to listen to it, like it's just a legit podcast, like I couldn't do it, because Skip is best in his best form. He's the godfather of the sports talk debate format that we run today. Mm-hmm. So I have to respect his list.
Him and Stephen A. Okay? As much as I hate them both, him and Stephen A. are.
It's him and Stephen A. are the reason that sports talk exists today as it does. But and Ando, to your comment about Skip needing to go, here's the thing.
He won't.
Fox will not get rid of Skip Bayless. It's not going to happen.
As
They're
far
going
as
to keep giving him money because
as far as their sports side, he's their guy.
he is the face of their sports brand.
Yeah.
Sports talk brand.
Yeah.
Let me clarify. Sports talk brand. And he says things that drive engagement. You know, as a media company, you know, and we're learning this as a podcast company as we try to expand out and try to turn this into something that can help pay some of our bills. Engagement drives your dollars. Your money is dictated by how much engagement you get as a company. You want to know why Fox didn't tell Skip Bayless to take it down? Engagement.
Yeah.
You want to know why Skip Bayless gets away with some of the fucked up shit he says, like how he treated Shannon Sharp 2 weeks ago? Engagement. They love engagement. People are talking about their products. People are referencing their stuff. Fox fucking loves that shit. And so it's traffic for them. And Justin, a 30 for 30 on the relationship between Skip and Shannon in this breakdown, I will watch that.
I will watch that multiple times. I would watch that.
I will go to I will make sure I have gone to the dispensary and gotten the best Canagar I can find in the fucking city. And then I will sit on my porch with that going with a glass of bourbon. And I will enjoy every second of that and learning more because I'm really conflicted with the whole Skip Bayless thing. I'll tell you why. Because part of me thinks about this. You know, like I said, Skip is one of the godfathers of the format, and he understands that their business is driving engagement, right? How much of what we see of Skip Bayless's behavior is an act?
I would have said probably a couple of years ago that it's 50-50, but more and more now, especially where he's constantly tweeting, he's constantly doing TikToks, he's constantly like doing something.
He does TikToks?
Yeah, I don't know if he still does it, but I remember one a couple of years ago of him throwing Dak Prescott's jersey in the trash, and then the next week going to get it out of the trash because they did better.
Oh, okay, now I have to go look through something on TikTok. God damn it!
Like I said, I don't know if he's still on there, but he was.
And again, I'm not defending. And I want to be clear to everybody watching this. Everybody watches it after West Coast Radio and all your amazing support. Thank you guys. I am not going to defend the tweet itself. I am not going to defend Skip Bayless disrespecting Shannon Sharp a few weeks ago by calling him jealous that Tom Brady's still playing and he's not. He's in the Hall of Fame. What does he have to be jealous of, Skip? Come the fuck on. But
3-time Super Bowl champion.
He won 3 rings, 2 in Denver, 1 in Baltimore. Because he was on the Baltimore Trent Dilfer team, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. One of the worst winning Super Bowl quarterbacks in NFL history, Trent fucking Dilfer. Tim Tebow 1.0 with less faith. Into your hair. Why is Tim Tebow a 40-year-old man with a faux hawk?
I don't know.
I don't understand. Like,
I don't understand.
As a Christian, I think it's great he's using this platform for his faith.
You know what he is? You know what Tim Tebow? He's a youth pastor now. He's a youth pastor. They always got the hippest hairstyle they think is cool.
Jesus Christ, you're right. Oh, Pastor Tebow. Jesus
Pastor
Christ.
Tebow.
Well, I mean, at least Pastor Tebow has more playoff wins than Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson.
Jackson. There's a couple of more added to that combined.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
But no, like it's. I'm so and that's why I'm so conflicted. I have the love-hate relationship that I have with Skip Bayless. How much of that is an act?
I don't think much of it is anymore. I think there was a time where it probably was, but Skip is so in the spotlight all the time. He's known for being this, like, it's made him friends with guys like Lil Wayne and Snoop Dogg, and like his persona is what makes him famous. So I think now And that's part of the problem why he tweets things like this. And it's the same thing with Stephen A. Smith. I think there was a time where these guys
they were able to, it's like they became the character.
Yeah, they were able to shut it off, but now it's so much of who they are, and they have to constantly be putting in more to it and more to it and more to it. It's like these wrestlers who end up living the gimmick. You don't see it as much anymore, but guys like Macho Man back in the day.
Right. The Hulk was bad about that. So, but here's and this is and I'm going to tell you the two things that have made me more and more believe that there's got to be at least somewhat of an act to what we're seeing out of Skip Bayless. And there's two things. Number one is Baker Mayfield. Skip Bayless on TV believes it more in Baker Mayfield than I think Baker Mayfield believes in Baker
Mayfield.
Skip Bayless acts like there is something that everybody's missing. And don't get me wrong, Baker Mayfield is a average to below average starting quarterback in the NFL. He is a starter quality.
I think above average backup.
Above average backup. I think if he waits it out with the Rams, stays with what's his nuts? McVay stays with Sean McVay and rides it out because that system is perfect for him.
Yep.
I think we see Baker make the playoffs again once Stafford retires. But you just sit there. You work on your mechanics. You get some of those small things down that you lost that you didn't get to really develop in Cleveland because you didn't have a fucking offensive line and really start to develop because that's how Baker gets successful. But the truth of the matter is there is nobody on the earth right now that believes in Baker Mayfield as much as Skip Bayless.
Again, Baker doesn't believe in Baker as much as Skip Bayless does.
Exactly. And that's why I struggle with it. And then the other one is when you talk to the average sports fan that is not just a casual, somebody like us that consumes copious amounts of sports content, we all respect, like, there could be, like, if I were to run into somebody that was a Hall of Fame baseball player that played for the New York Yankees, I'm not going to be a dick to them just because they played for the Yankees and I'm a Red Sox fan. I respect that they are a Hall of Fame baseball player. Most sports fans that aren't casual will immediately, they're going to be like, fuck the Yankees. But hey, you were a pro.
You're going to say that because also that player is probably going to be like, oh yeah, I get it. I do. And maybe even rib you back. Like, oh, well, yeah. I took your team out of the playoffs in this year.
Right. And I mean, that's the thing, is that's the beauty of the relationship with most of us that are not just casuals, that are actually dedicated. We're passionate about this stuff because it entertains us so much. For Skip Bayless to outright call Shannon Sharpe jealous because Tom Brady is playing at 45 and just disrespect him in such a blatant manner. The only time I ever see somebody get away with something like that without getting their teeth kicked in is wrestling.
That was my thought too. And that's why I can't get over it. Like, is it possible that he kind of became the character a little bit? Yeah.
Absolutely. I that's completely reasonable. Him and Stephen A. Smith both. It's 100% reasonable. Doesn't make their actions okay.
No.
It just explains why they're there. But I have to believe at least some of this is just an act because it's the only way any of it makes sense.
Well, and I'll say this for Shannon. I swear he was more pissed at the fact that Skip couldn't let him get through an opening monologue yesterday than he was at the comment about his career 2 weeks ago.
And that's and that's one of the reasons why I think Shannon is on the way out. I've actually been sitting on that theory for a while. And I think a lot of it comes down to Skip in his age, as Will says here. He's, Skip is 71, he's 70, like I said, 71, 72, somewhere in there. he doesn't get the chance. Shannon does not get the chance to speak. Skip interrupts him on a regular basis.
Constantly.
And like, I get pissed when my customers do that. And I work in sales, so I really have to hold my tongue. I can't be like Shannon go.
We get frustrated on this show about us interrupting each other.
Right. So from something where they're supposed to be that emotional and that into it, for him to completely disrespect Shannon and leave that building with his teeth in his mouth, at least some of that's got to be an act. But I still think based on the way that it's looking, it's like, I mean, even if it is all an act, Shannon's on his way out. And if he doesn't get,
sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, if he doesn't get something really good with FS1, I could see ESPN picking him off and putting him on First Take with Stephen A.
Man, if you're Shannon, do you really want to go from one crazy nut job to the other?
Yeah, because Stephen A knows better than to disrespect a Hall of Famer to his face. He can't call a UFC game to save his life, but he knows better than to tell Shannon Sharp he's jealous of Tom Brady and think he's going to leave the building with his teeth in his mouth.
I just watching Shannon yesterday, like I wanted to reach through the TV and strangle Skip. Like you couldn't even. The man was not there the day before, specifically to avoid this. And obviously, y'all aren't talking before the show if you thought that this wasn't going to be brought up. Because how is Shannon going to be absent on one of the biggest sports stories of the year? We're only 3 days into the year, and then not address it the next day. Like it had to be addressed why I wasn't here.
He didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And you know, Skip saying, "Oh, I thought this wasn't going to get brought up." Like, really, Skip?
And
really,
Skip, you're the only person that thinks you shouldn't have deleted that tweet by now. Literally,
no. The executives for that show probably told him not to delete it because I have to think at some point common sense is going to kick in and you'll be like, there's a lot of people and a lot of athletes that I would like to have as guests on the show that are supremely pissed off that I tweeted this. And Fox is going, no. This is great advertisement. We'll leave it there.
And I looked
and
up
I would not put that past Fox Sports for FS1 to do that. Not
at all. I looked up Skip just to see if we were right on his age, and he did turn 71 on December 4th. But one of the first articles that came up from the New York Post, there is a petition from athletes calling for his firing after this.
And that's the thing. Fox, I appreciate the sentiment. I understand the reasoning. And like I said, it was in poor timing and poor taste from a comic that has bombed in front of multiple crowds. Trust me, poor timing, poor taste. However, Fox is not going to fire Skip Bayless. It's not going to happen.
He's got ESPN, 5 years left on his contract.
He's got 5 years left on his contract, and ESPN is chomping at the bit to bring him back. Yeah. If Fox fires him, ESPN is going to take him, and Fox is going to take a huge ratings hit. They don't want to do that. The ratings for morning sports talk, despite how much we all dislike him, follow Skip Bayless.
Yep. Him and Stephen A. They are the ratings for sports talk.
That's the ratings. And so you can either, as a network, since it wasn't sexist, it wasn't racist, it's just something that pissed people off. Skip says stuff that pisses people off on a regular basis.
Yep.
So as amazing of a sentiment as it is in trying to support Demar Hamlin and, you know, his health being the most important thing, because as I said earlier, our belief is that athletes are people too. And I'm, again, proud of Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott for leading their men and taking a stand and not continuing the game on Monday night. And I say that as a Chiefs fan. Like, I would have been pissed if you hadn't. But
I do want to talk a little bit about how long it took them and some of the reports that have come out Because we all heard Joe Buck say they were going to have 5 minutes to warm up. As much as I don't like Joe Buck, I don't believe he says that without him being told that in the headset.
And I can tell you where it came from. So, and you know, for those of you that are not aware, this will be a good spot to learn some stuff. I can tell you where Joe Buck got that direction, that was what was going to happen. So the NFL has a emergency preparedness manual that is in place for every game. And the producers for the TV have a copy of that plan. And this is because they are able to feed information to the broadcasters as to what's going on, what the plan is, what the options on the table are going to be, that stuff, so that they can keep talking on TV and they don't have to keep showing commercials and losing ratings. And so one of the producers looked at that emergency preparedness plan and saw severe injury, stop of play. After they get the player off the field out of the ambulance, they're going to get time to warm up, probably 5 to 10 minutes, and then they're going to be back at it. And that's protocol for any long-term stop of play. We saw when at that Super Bowl, the Harbaugh Super Bowl, when the power outage happened, they were down for, what was it, a half hour that they were down without power in the second half. And then when they came back, 5 to 10 minutes to warm up, and then you're back at it. The information that Joe Buck was talking about was just because that's what the NFL's preparedness plan made them expect to happen. Now, the coaches said no, and the league was like, yeah, the league hadn't made that call. I believe Troy Vincent, when he said that nobody made that call, I have no reason to believe that they didn't, because the league will take that hit if they need to. You know, because they're not above saying, you guys are right. We should have checked with the players first and seen how things were going. They will take those L's because they don't care. You're still going to be watching the game next week. They don't care. It's not going to hurt the brand. You're still going to buy jerseys. They don't care. They have no reason to lie. And so when you realize that they had no reason to lie, where did Joe Buck get that? He wasn't making it up. I've worked on TV shows and stuff like that and been on the TV and seen how the TV side of NFL games work. Guess what, guys? I worked a Super Bowl. I've seen a lot of that stuff get set up and learned a lot of shit in the process. They got that was in their emergency preparedness manual for what was going to happen. And they said, Joe, okay, they're getting him off the field, so this is what's going to happen next. And Joe Buck saying this and realizing that, like, okay, I'm going to say this because this gives us something to talk about. But you could tell both as he and Troy talking about it, they didn't understand. There's no way that game resumes after all these guys just watch their teammate or their coworker opponent almost die right in front of them on the field. Because these guys, as is common in a severe injury, and it's something that, like, it's not something that we as athletes talk about. It's just something that happens when there's a severe injury like that. We're all around them, especially if there's cameras present, because we don't want any misleading pictures taken. We don't want anything being looked at other than the way that it is. And we don't want the medical staff that's working on that person to be worried about how something looks. They need to be worried about doing their job because that person needs to be taken care of immediately. And so they get surrounded. That's why a lot of those shots that we saw, all of the players, not just the Bengals, all of those players surrounded that area to make sure the cameras couldn't get in. And when Fox was able, and ESPN, they have the Sky Cam, and they were able to look and see overhead. We actually, during the broadcast, they showed a couple of shots of the overhead, but they were far back, so you couldn't exactly see what was going on. You could just see that they're working on it. So that's why we never saw that there was a defibrillator used, because the players blocked the cameras on the ground from being able to get in, as is, common. And the Sky Cam, once they were realizing what was going on, like, yeah, we're not going to show that. So these guys are surrounding them to protect their decency, and they're watching these medical professionals try and revive this person that they were just in a play with 5 minutes before.
Yeah.
All while their adrenaline is pumping, and now their fight or flight is kicking in, because here's the thing. If you're in a situation in a competitive match like that, and you watch somebody go down and there is a severe injury, your fight or flight response kicks in because somebody has gotten injured, and your primal senses think, because of everything that you've been doing, your primal senses tick in that you're in battle. And so your brain is working differently, but at the same time, because if you think about it, if you've ever been in a situation where your fight or flight kicks in, once you've been able to, once it comes out, you remember every single detail of what you just went through, down to the second. You could, the clothes, the color of the grass, everything is right there in your forefront. So these men are in a heightened sense. Their fight or flight gets kicked in because they watch a coworker, we'll call it, because it was Bengals and Bills both that were watching this guy. A coworker is now laying down on the field, going through life-saving measures. You just watch that, and then you're expected to go back into a state of peak mental and physical fitness for the next 51 minutes, whatever, because it was like 6:27 left, I believe, in the first quarter. So 51 and a half minutes of gameplay time to knock out this game and push that aside. I would not be surprised if some of the men, especially on the Bills, some of these men have PTSD from this.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that was something I actually wanted to bring up to you, Seven, is we got Week 18 coming up. It is the end of regular season. Now we know DeMar's okay, or gonna be. Hopefully, we're still getting information. He's doing well. The Bills and the Bengals both have games this weekend.
Right. Okay.
Where are their minds at?
So let's talk about that.
Because also you got to think about like T. Let's talk about T for a second. He caused a coworker, friend, whatever.
He didn't cause it. He did not cause it.
Sorry, bad choice of words. A part of a
play
bad
where
choice
a
of
coworker
words.
dropped.
I apologize.
Right.
Bad choice of words. He was a part of the incident, and because of it, he is getting death threats. Not going to be in the greatest mental state. And I realize he's an athlete. He's probably able to say, you know what? I got to go out here. I got to do a job. I got to move on. And I have no doubt in my mind that's what T. Higgins will do. But man, you think about guys like Josh Allen, who we visibly saw was in tears on the field. Mm-hmm. Same with God, I can never remember their running back's name or their star wide receiver, Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs.
Same. And then at one point you saw Diggs was pumping up the team, thinking that they were going to have to go back on the field.
Right, because and here's the thing, they expect it even after a severe injury, because they watch these guys, they watch guys have a severe leg break. Think about the leg break that Alex Smith went through when he was quarterback for then the Washington Redskins, or I think maybe in the football team at that point.
No, they were still Redskins.
I don't fucking know. But when Alex Smith broke his leg, that was a severe compound break. What for those of you that don't understand what that means, what you need to understand is that the bone break was so bad, part of his bone was sticking up from his skin. It's like, what was that? Wasn't it that player in the college basketball that had that bad break that went out? Was it Duke? It was Duke or Kentucky, something like that.
It was Duke.
He went down and you could see the bone sticking out of the skin. Okay. And this break almost killed him. His Alex Smith's teammates had to see that and then turn right back around and go play. I understand that the NFL is a business and severe injuries can happen, but there had to be a line. And I'm glad that the line was drawn with something like this, because this was absolutely the right decision to just go, look, we've got to stop this, because the mental health and safety of every single one of those players, all, I believe it's 112, because it's what, 50 or 108, because 54 for
108.
each team. Yeah, 54 for each team. So 108 players, and then all of the coaches and trainers and staff and everything else that all had to deal with this. And at some point, you have to take the human element into consideration and go, we got to give these guys a break and allow them to process this, because otherwise it's not going to be a healthy response. And then for T. Higgins, if T. Higgins plays Sunday, I will be shocked. And anybody that criticizes him for not playing should be kicked in the testicles.
Let me hear. Man.
Like, I'm talking, you get Adam Vinatieri in his swole 50 dad bod
with a steel toe boot.
To just line up and kick him, man, woman, whatever other gender they claim. I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to watch somebody get kicked in the nuts. Do not criticize T. Higgins if he doesn't play this week. I wouldn't blame him one bit.
Any player from those two, it really, truly, after listening to New Heights and listening to Travis and Jason this week, any player who says, you know what, my heart is just not in it this week, because you also got to think these players, like, they kind of just saw their mortality. Like,
right.
They realize that, they all know, yes, they play a dangerous game. They know that. They don't expect to almost die on the field.
The potential for issues with mortality while you're playing the game. These guys understand the risk of CTE. I think we can all, that discussion,
a leg or tearing ACL.
Right. There are always, they understand that there are risks, but none of these men have ever really had to look at the game that they love and think this game could take my life while I'm still playing it.
Yeah.
And Jason, you're absolutely right. At any of the Bills players, any of the Bengals players, any of them, they just watched a heinous thing, something that nobody should ever have to deal with watching. Like, as somebody who's watched people die, watched people get revived, it's not something that you forget.
No.
The knowledge that somebody in front of you's heart has stopped beating. It's a heavy thought. It's a heavy thing to experience. And anybody that has to go through that, because yes, it's a part of life, that mortality is a part of life. There's 100%.
Only things to guaranteed: death and taxes. Well, there's a third thing. Third thing, Andrew Davis is going to get hurt at some point in the year. But
yeah,
Anthony Davis.
Yeah. But the thing for me is, we have to remember athletes are people too. We have to be, because when you're thinking about your fantasy football, that man, everybody that was thinking about, they needed the score from Josh Allen's fantasy football points. I get that. You probably had money riding on that league. I get that. But which do you think is more impactful in the grand scheme of things? Whether or not you win $250, or the fact that Josh Allen just watched a player that he has huge respect for on his team, that he shares a workspace with, that he's talked to,
who's had
a
pretty amazing year.
Pretty amazing year. He came in for the injuries. Colin Sanders, right?
Yeah, game three came in for Colin Sanders,
and has just crushed it.
Yeah.
Demar Hamlin was having an absolute standout year.
He was going to be a starter after the season.
Absolutely. And to see all the men that he played with, this guy that they've gotten to know over the last 15 weeks at least, probably, definitely longer.
I mean, he probably
but we'll say just for
Yeah.
Just for, starting sake, we'll say 15 weeks. 14 weeks. These men had gotten to know this guy, and then they watch him almost die. Anybody that's critical of somebody in that situation for needing to take a step back is super fucking selfish, and I don't care how negatively it impacts you. I'm sorry. I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for you having to split the payout on your fantasy football championship. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Human life is the most important thing. Does that stuff suck? Yeah, I'm a Chiefs fan. I have a really low chance of getting a home field advantage for the AFC Championship now. And we're going to talk about that because the NFL released what they're going to do. I have a really low chance of being able to see my team host the game that they've hosted for the last, 3 years, 4 years now?
Something like that.
So,
now you probably are going to end up playing the Bengals at some point too, which is how
fucking Joe Burrow.
Joey Payne.
But these guys have, we as fans, if we truly want to support the craft and the entertainment of the product that we watch, we have to be willing to put our pride and our selfish reasons aside and support the humanity of these men, because the humanity of these men is what gives us the product that we get.
Exactly why we have this show.
It's exactly why we have this show. And so if you know somebody that was bitching about the fantasy football implications, slap in the face for me. Just I know you're not supposed to advocate for violence. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm just it's teaching them a lesson. Just slap them in the face. Okay.
So real quick, I was just to add to this. I was listening to New Heights podcast on my way home today, and it was a really short one. They only did like 23 minutes because they just talked about this. And, but Jason brought up on the Eagles this week, they had a guy, I can't remember his last name, first name Josh. He went down and for a few minutes was paralyzed. And Jason talked about how just that, and he's not trying to compare the two or anything, but just how that affected him. And luckily they were able to know and find out in the game that he was going to be okay, and they were able to clear their head and move forward. But with everything we do know with Demar now, there's still a lot of questions, and that's going to be running through these guys' heads. And to me, any player for any team that is questioning, should they play this week, shouldn't have to play this week.
Absolutely. Not what? Ooh, oops. So I just realized I posted the StreamYard link on my Twitter.
Oh dang! I'm surprised we didn't have people popping in.
Me too. Apparently, my followers don't really pay attention to me, so fuck them. Let's see. I wanted to do that. There we go. Okay. But in my, it's. I'm thankful that Demar is doing better, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that a majority of people have been willing to see the humanity of our gladiators, if you will.
Which is what they are.
Which is what they are. They're modern day gladiators. I'm glad that we were able to see the humanity of them. And I thought it was great. One of the things that I saw, so Demar Hamlin had a charity that was it supported his local area, and he had started a GoFundMe when he was in college for $2,500 for a toy drive, and kept it open, and it was more, going towards his charity, and doing more toy drives as he became an NFL player. And I remember when I saw the link flying around Twitter about a couple hours after it happened, it was already up over 500,000. And today it's over 7.5 million.
Yeah.
And that just shows the impact that we can have as a group of individuals that just love watching a bunch of guys beat each other up over a pigskin and come together to support one of those pigskin fighters and make sure that they know that we as fans care about their health and safety and their future above ourselves. So I think that if we can keep that same mentality in everything we do, our country and our world would be in a much better fucking place.
So as of this broadcast, 225,000 people have donated over $7 million to Hamlin's foundation. His family are so overwhelmed with with everybody. They are also asking for people to donate to to UC, the hospital that's treating him.
Absolutely.
And it's been crazy. People from every sport, every walk of life have donated. You've had groups, you've had celebrities.
Chris Jericho
Donated twice because the first time they misspelled
his name. I thought that was great. I thought that was great.
So he donated, instead of just saying whatever, he donated another 5,000. And then LeBron, Sierra and her husband, because he's Sierra's husband.
Andy Dalton and his wife.
Yeah.
And all right, so to wrap up, before we wrap up, the other thing we got to talk about is what the NFL is going to do. And I'm putting this up on the screen, but I'm going to read it to you guys because that's really the best way to actually get it. Because obviously this is really fucking
really
tiny.
Trying, and that is really small.
Yeah, that it's hard, and I get that, phrasing. So just a second, let me get this back up on my screen. Okay. So the NFL announced today that the Week 17 Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals game will not be resumed and has been canceled. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell informed all clubs of the decision earlier today after speaking with the Bills, the Bengals, and the NFL Players Association leadership. They are so basically what they're and what this goes on to say, and I got this off of Ian Rappaport's Twitter, so just at Rap Sheet. You can check it out there. But basically what they're going to do is that they're canceling the game. And if a game comes up between the Bills and the Chiefs or the Bengals and the Bills, unless either the Bengals, the Bills, or the Chiefs lose this week, then what we're going to see is they will play the game, instead of there being home field advantage, they will play the game at a neutral site. There has been no information released on where that neutral site might be, because that is going to depend on the Week 18 results. Mm-hmm. Now, just for information, for those of you that don't know what the schedule looks tonight, thank you, Chris. We appreciate you. Thank you for supporting us. For those of you that don't know, this week, Kansas City plays the Las Vegas Raiders on Saturday. The Bills have the Patriots at home on Sunday, and the Bengals have the Ravens at home. The Bengals, now one thing I did in that release, the Bengals have been declared the winners of their division. I believe it's the AFC South or AFC North, whatever it was. AFC North. The Bengals have won their division.
The South is a dumpster fire. It will be decided.
That's right.
The South will be decided versus Tennessee and Jacksonville on Saturday.
That's right. That's the Saturday night game. Okay. All right. So simple there.
To the point that their Week 16 or Week 17 game, neither of them made any difference. It did not matter. This game will decide the AFC South. It is absolute garbage.
Yep. Now, if, Chiefs fans, you will want to root for the Patriots this week. I know that hurts, but Tom Brady's not the quarterback of the Patriots. It's Mac Jones.
Is it Mac Jones, or is it the guy that played for him this week? One who's
Oh, you know what? That's
out there looking like Tom Brady, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Because
I don't know.
Mac is still hurt.
Well, you just gotta hope that the Patriots can pull it out. I'll buy a hoodie and cut the sleeves off just to wear it like Bill Belichick if they do. But I mean, ultimately, outside of that, the other play. I mean, they all win their division, so they get home field advantage until the AFC Championship game anyway.
No, it is, but it is Mac. Mac is starting.
Okay, so there we go. Mac Jones, I need you to ruin Josh Allen's day. Josh Allen, I love you.
Oh, you were crazy. Josh Allen's not losing that game.
No, Josh Allen's not losing that game. I could dream, goddammit. I could dream.
That is a deep dream.
I can dream. The things I dream that will never happen is that Anna Kendrick is going to call me one day and tell me she's in love with me.
If that happens,
Ashley Green is going to call me one day and tell me she's in love with me. For those of you that don't know, she's a model and she also played Alice in the Twilight series. Oh, man, I would let her beat the crap out of me. But, okay, so as we wrap up here, of course, again, we want to share our support for Demar Hamlin. We definitely hope he gets better. Thoughts and prayers with you and your family and your friends as everybody's had to go through this. The Bills, the Bengals as well. We have definitely been praying for you guys, and take care of your mental health. For the love of God, please take care of your mental health. That is far more important than any fucking game. Seriously.
I want to say 2 things before we get out of here. We in the sports world, in the extreme sports world, we lost Ken Block this week. Lost Ken Block this week from a crazy
snowmobile accident.
Which, if you know anything about Ken Block, that is exactly how that man wanted to go.
I mean, clearly.
We're talking about the man who designed the Gymkhana videos, which was just pushing his car literally to its limits. And we lost him.
That was my favorite thing to do. Like back in the day, I would spend a lot of time getting stoned and watching Ken Block Gymkhana videos or fail videos.
And then
Ken Block is a very talented driver, and I'm very to his friends and family. I'm sorry for your loss.
Also,
that was
the owner
tough.
of DC Shoes. So
and I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew because I prefer DC shoes. Like I think I've got some down here somewhere. I'm actually wearing some Walmart ones right now, but my favorite pair of shoes I have is a pair of DCs.
I knew that from the Fantasy Factory because he sponsors Rob Dudek.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And also today, Nate Colbert passed away.
Really?
Yeah. The Padres just released a statement. We are deeply saddened by the passing of Padres Hall of Famer Nate Colbert. Our hearts go out to his wife Casey and the entire Colbert family at this difficult time. An original member of the Padres in 1969, Nate was a trailblazer in San Diego sports community. He was a 3-time National League All-Star in brown and gold and became the Padres' all-time home run king with 163, a record that still stands today. Nate was devoted to his community off the field as well, dedicating his time to disadvantaged youth through his ministry. He was a magnetic person who will be dearly missed.
Absolutely. That's heartbreaking. Oh, and also breaking news this evening, Indianapolis Colts Hall of Fame running back and Madden cover athlete Peyton Hillis is in intensive care himself after saving his kids from drowning in the ocean.
Yeah, I saw that.
Prayer, seriously, like I just, man, take care of yourselves. Seriously,
Yeah.
I'm worried about all of you. I'm gonna put all of you in plastic wrap. I'm gonna put you in a closet. That's not meant to sound as creepy as it does, but this is insane, man.
Yeah, it's we're only 5 days in, and this year has been crazy. Barbara Walters, Jeremy Renner in the hospital, almost lost his legs
because of a snowmobile accident.
That was snow plow. So
snow plow.
He was plowing his driveway, and it's supposed to work like a riding mower. You fall off, it dies. It didn't, and ran over him.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's insane. Because I'd seen some pictures, but I hadn't got to go back and fully read on it. But I thought I'd seen it was a snowmobile, but snow plow. I mean, yeah, but he's awake, and that's a great that makes me happy. And Demar Hamlin being awake today, recognizing people, squeezing hands, asking who won the game through writing, stuff like that. Just shows consummate football player, but obviously we want to see him get better. It's not about being able to play football again for us. We want to see him be able to live a happy and healthy life.
I do.
That's what we're concerned about first. If he makes it back to playing football again, that's comeback player of the year. That's
comeback player of the century right there.
That is somebody giving Alex Smith a run for their money on the level of comeback. But the comeback player of the year, that should be the Alex Smith comeback player of the year. It should be the name of that trophy. I'm sorry.
Yes, it should. Until DeMar comes back and takes that crown.
But if DeMar comes back and takes it, then that's the Demar Hamlin trophy, I think. No, because DeMar has the chance to maybe get like a defensive MVP or all defensive stuff like that. Alex Smith is just going to have that. Let's let him keep that. He had to play for the Redskins and Dan Snyder. Let's give him something.
I will say, I hope this changes a little bit of I wanted to just leave on NFL's policy, because at this time, DeMar's not vetted. He would have needed to play one more season to be vetted in the NFL to get all the health insurance and things that they get once they retire. The league can change that, and the Players Association will probably discuss the league and get him what
I'm sure. Yeah, he's going to be taken care of. But there's no question in my mind. Demar Hamlin's going to be taken care of.
Yes, but for further on, as we see that these things can happen, these guys should be getting that sooner, and because I think it's 4 years and 3 games that they have to play.
I don't have a problem. Here's the thing. I understand it taking time for some kind of vetting. It takes time when you start a new job before you get full benefits. And I don't get the same amount of PTO as a guy that's been with my company for 5 years does, because I'm just hitting my 3-year mark in March. So I get that. But I will also say this. The league has to commit to, in situations of extreme injury, they have to just go, we've got you. There shouldn't be a question. It shouldn't be talking to the Players Association, talking to the owners to make sure they're okay covering the bill. No, we are going to take care of you if you get a major injury in game like that. It shouldn't be a question at all, because especially in something that can permanently impact our life. Because let's look at what Tua Tagovailoa is going through. This is now what, 3 concussions in 1 year. You're getting lucky to get 4 years out at this point, but he absolutely should be taken care of.
Yeah.
So I can understand to a point certain vetting for certain benefits and stuff like that, but we also have to be willing to look at the physical side of this and go, okay, we got you, which they absolutely should be doing in these. And again, extreme cases. If they don't get injured, who gives a fuck? Nobody. Nobody's going to give a fuck if somebody that doesn't get injured didn't get the coverage because they didn't get injured. Nobody gives a fuck. But if they get an extreme injury on the field, the NFL, it should be without question. Just, all right, we got you.
Yep.
100%. It's just like if I was working in construction, doesn't matter how long I've been there. If I'm working in construction and I get injured at work, not negligently, but an accident happens, I get injured at work and I can't work ever again. My work is responsible for paying me, even if it was my second day on the job.
Someone who's been on workers' comp twice with 2 different employers, they got to pay if you get hurt there.
And so there's no reason why in an extreme injury case they can't go, all right, we got you. There's no reason, because all of these owners that are nutsacks own other businesses, and if one of their employees gets extremely injured, doesn't matter if it's their first day, last day, any day in between, they got to take care of it. So guess what? You got to take care of it. It's only right. But Josie, thank you for joining me tonight. Not a Dr. Norm, thank you for joining me, my friend. I appreciate you as always.
Thank you to our producer, Erica.
Erica, she had to dip out a little early. Dan, I know you're still getting stuff taken care of for your house, buddy. We will see you next week as Sports Report After Dark is back for the year, and you will catch me back on Sports Report starting next week. I did take a little bit of time to myself to process the passing of Stephen Weaver. And I know I've made a comment on that, so I'll say it here. I'll probably talk again about this really briefly on Monday. Nobody expected Steph in the past. There was no indications that there was any issues. I have been in contact with his daughter. We are going to have somebody at his celebration of life. Craig is going to make it. Or we've made sure of that. We're going to make sure that's facilitated.
That's awesome.
Because, yeah, it's the celebration of life is going to be in San Francisco. Craig's like 45 minutes away. So he's going to make sure that we have somebody there. For the support that we've gotten with the passing of Stephen Weaver, I want to say thank you to all those. Winter meetings will be back with the start of the baseball season, probably going to start in mid-March.
The Weaver rule, baby. The Weaver rule.
Always remember the Weaver rule. You have to wear pants when you're on camera, as unfun as it may be. Unless you're a porn star, I guess but the Weaver rule doesn't apply to that because you're not on our podcast. Unless we're doing things really, really correctly. Anyway, thank you for your support. Say a prayer for Stefan's family as they're processing the sudden loss. He had a daughter that just got married not just a few months before, and he died right after Christmas. So keep the Weaver family in your prayers. Peyton Hillis's family, keep him in your thoughts, and the continued recovery for Demar Hamlin. We thank you for your support and for taking a chance to listen tonight and listen to us talk about the importance of athletes being treated like people too. We will see you Monday night on the Sports Report, 10 p.m. Eastern. Have a good night, everybody.
When you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.